We are gathered here today for basically one reason. It has to do with this lady, Kathleen Kennedy. Okay? And yesterday, we were all reeling from a report from Matt Maloney over at Puck. A big report, 3 different sources indicate to him that Kathleen Kennedy will retire in 2025. The good news is that does appear to be true insofar as she is retiring as the president of Lucasfilm. After this news came out, tons of people chimed in, dude. Tons of people chimed in. A lot of different opinions out there, a lot of different reports, some conflicting reports. This is a massive, big deal. Everybody wants to know who's taking over Star Wars. Who is getting this job? Where do we go from here? What is the plan? Okay? So let me just take you through, since yesterday, all of the context that happened. Multiple people say that Filoni is a part of this. It's basically confirmed that she is retiring as the president of Lucasfilm in 2025. It's not like 100% confirmed. There was pushback in an article from CNN, okay? And in this article from CNN, you know, its sources close to Kennedy come out and say no decision has been made officially yet, okay? So there's some pushback to this being her actual retirement. And by the way, there is technically a chance, chat, that she does not retire this year. Plans change. According to Jeff Snider, and I found this to be fascinating, but according to Jeff Snider, who put out a crazy big spread, like a huge detailed report in his newsletter last night about this whole situation, according to Jeff, she almost left in 2024, and she literally almost left to go either be an advisor or help to fund or work on an AI company. She was going to go work in AI technology with regards to like producing and creating movies. She almost left in 2024 to go do AI. Isn't that fascinating, right? But she didn't. Best laid plans. It didn't happen. So look, here's the reality of the situation. She's absolutely going to be retiring soon. They are selling assets out of LA. She wants to go do more stuff with her husband and Frank Marshall. All the stuff that we talked about yesterday is true. But I just want to warn you that technically things could change and she could stay on for another year. Okay? However, according to all the stuff that came out yesterday, pretty much everybody agrees that she will retire in 2025. There are very few people that are saying she won't. I'm just trying to warn you that technically it is possible that she does not retire in 2025. Regardless, she will be retiring soon as the president. Now, multiple people came out to basically say that Dave Filoni is a part of the takeover, or I guess more correctly, Dave Filoni will be a part of the replacement for Kathleen Kennedy. Some people think it will be him with John Favreau. Some people think it could be him with Kevin Feige. Some people think it could be him with Carrie Beck. THR says that Filoni has the job and it'll be announced at Star Wars Celebration. That's wild. Okay? So the Filoni piece seems to have a lot of evidence. Basically, everybody has concluded that Dave Filoni is a part of the apparatus that will replace Kathleen Kennedy as president. However, almost nobody thinks that it will just be Dave. Like, literally, basically nobody thinks that that is what is going to happen. And also, I hate to be that guy, but I'm going to need more goddamn likes on this video. We got over 900 people watching. We don't even have 200 likes. I know it's early in the morning. I know this news is confusing. I know we're all shocked, and we're all worried about Star Wars and what the hell's actually going on. Is she actually gone? I totally get it. But do me a favor and just move your finger over to the like button. And hit the like button. Thank you. Okay, so let's keep going. As I said, basically nobody says that it's going to be Dave alone. And frankly, Dave's probably not qualified alone. You know, we're going to go over an article here in a second. It's interesting. They talk about how 90% of the job is non-creative. Most of the job is like dealing with licensors or executives and really boring shit. So like Dave's like really not qualified for that. Many people brought up the Peter Safran, James Gunn example. And sure, that can work. You get somebody to handle the business stuff. You get somebody to handle the creative. That could work. Now, there was a report that came out late last night from the World of Real. And the World of Real said that they have heard that it will be Jon Favreau and it will be Dave Filoni. Those two will take over for Kathleen Kennedy. And that kind of was corroborated by what we heard yesterday when I brought up Andrew, the guy that owns Discussing Film. He had sort of suggested on social media that the people taking over were exactly who you thought they were going to be. In my opinion, that had to be John and Dave. And that appears to still be the thinking of many people, that it will be John and Dave. Okay? However, the trades, and that is important because it's always important to talk about the trades because they really represent the institutional Hollywood voice or perhaps the curiosity of the Hollywood machine. Sometimes they will put stuff out in the trades to see how people react to it, right? But the Hollywood trades actually said something really interesting. They said that Kevin Feige is actually the choice that people in Hollywood want. That like a lot of people that are close to the situation say it should be Kevin Feige. A lot of people actually don't think Dave has what it takes to do it. And they think it should be Kevin Feige. Okay, so that's sort of the status quo of everything that happened before Jeff Snider's bombshell report last night, okay? Essentially, it's real. She is retiring as president of Lucasfilm. Okay, that's the first thing to keep in mind. That's an important thing to remember. Second of all, Dave Filoni is a piece of this. 100% Dave Filoni is a piece of this. So many people, multiple sources, everybody's saying Dave is a part of it. Some people believe that it's Favreau. World of Real, that Andrew guy, some other people out there speculating it's going to be Favreau. The trades really seem to be pushing for Kevin Feige and suggesting that Feige should be the one to do it. Okay? And then Jeff Snider dropped his report last night in his newsletter, and this really does change a lot of stuff, man. It brings context into the situation, and unfortunately not context that I think a lot of you are going to like. Okay? So, again, Jeff says she's definitely retiring as president. They've been thinking about it for a long time. Jeff even indicates it almost happened in 2024. She was going to go join an AI company. She didn't end up doing that for whatever reason. It fell apart. I've heard other reports that, she was close. It was a couple of different moments where she was close, but ultimately they can't find the right person for the job. She had to stick around. Similar to what's happening with Bob Iger. He can't find a successor, so he's had to just kind of stay on. Now, they're working on that right now, and they're likely working on this situation with Kennedy right now. And so I just want to say that, Jeff comes in and basically says, yeah, this is not a bombshell report because everybody knows she's leaving soon. There's all these signs, all this stuff in the works. She's leaving. Okay, so that's number one. He then comes on and he says something kind of heartbreaking. He says Jon Favreau is not going to do this. He said Jon Favreau is not interested in doing this. And the way I took his reporting, he was basically saying that Jon absolutely is not going to do this. And part of the reason why is actually money. And man, I actually found this part to be really interesting. So what Jeff Snider is reporting, and this is kind of crazy. Check this out. Apparently, Jon Favreau, due to his deals at Star Wars, whenever he makes a show or he makes a movie, he's getting paid ungodly amounts of money. And the way Jeff Snider described this is that the Jon Favreau currently is actually making more money from Lucasfilm than even James Gunn is making as the co-president of DC Studios. So let that kind of sink in for a second and think about that, and that's kind of wild. But it kind of makes sense. I mean, there were times where Robert Downey Jr. was literally making more than Bob Iger, the guy that ran all of Disney. So it's not like this can't happen. Talent is worth what talent is worth, right? But think about that. Jon is literally getting paid more just making the movies and the shows than James Gunn is making running a whole studio and busting his ass. I mean, look, obviously Gunn and I have our differences, but one thing is for sure, Gunn is busting his ass. He's trying really hard to get this thing off the ground. He's been writing for a year straight. It's crazy. And he's not even being paid what Favreau is being paid just to make these shows. Wild. So part of this is a money situation. Jon's not going to go do way more work for way less pay and way more risk to his overall career. Other people have categorized this as Jon wants to go do other things, potentially Marvel stuff, potentially his own stuff or whatever. I mean, the dude made Elf. You know what I mean? I'm going to be real. You make a movie like Elf, and he's made a lot of other awesome movies too, but you make a movie like Elf, yeah, I mean, you can kind of charge whatever you want. That's how that works. So although I think World of Real is good, and I think Andrew's good, and I think they're probably just hearing that, Disney really wants John to do this, because I would assume they really want John to do it. According to Jeff, it's not going to happen. He's not going to do it, and it's partially because of a pay issue. That's crazy. So this next part is about Kevin Feige. And, Jeff talked about Kevin Feige, and he said there was literally a path for Feige to take over Star Wars and to take over Marvel around Avengers Endgame. Like, basically coming out of Avengers Endgame, that was a real thing. Now, Jeff doesn't go into a lot of detail here, but I got the detail, baby, because I've been covering this shit forever, and this was something I've tried to tell you guys about many different times. Feige was literally going to take over Star Wars, and he was going to become a big part of driving Star Wars in a different direction. That was absolutely going to happen. Kathy kept him at arm's length, and this is like an issue that sort of built up over time to the point where, like, Feige literally has to say on a red carpet that he's not doing that Star Wars movie anymore, and it was like a really awkward moment, a really awkward interview. And look, the reality is this could have happened at one point with Kevin. He was willing to do it. He kind of wanted to do it. And I think Disney wanted to do it, but Kathy kind of shut the whole thing down. She put a kibosh on it. Now, what Jeff says is he thinks it's unlikely because Kevin Feige is kind of on a cold streak. He's not like putting out crazy hits like he was obviously around the Endgame time. And so to Jeff, he does not think that Kevin Feige will do that now. Okay, it's kind of interesting. Now, I'll put something out there, and then we got to put a pin in it. We'll come back to it later. While this is all going on, right? Because this is obviously huge news, guys. Like, Kathleen Kennedy stepping down, Star Wars, big brand, big iconic company. Who's going to take over? It's massive. The trades are literally like Kevin Feige, Kevin Feige, Kevin Feige. That's who the Hollywood people want, right? And so just this morning, My Time to Shine Hello actually came out and said that she has heard that Kevin Feige will actually be leaving Marvel Studios, that Kennedy's leaving and Kevin is going to leave as well. We'll come back to that, but that could potentially mean he's not going to take over Star Wars. Like that, if he's already planning an exit, and it's probably an exit to like a higher floor in the building, a bigger office. Like he wants that Alan Bergman job. He wants to take over everything. And so it's just kind of unlikely that in his last few years at Marvel, he would also shoulder some work for Star Wars, right? Things could change, but probably not, right? So Feige could still do it, but probably not. Now, Jeff's prediction is that it will be Carrie Beck and Dave Filoni. And man, I don't like this. But Jeff actually gives some pretty good reasoning here. And even though I don't like it, even though I think a lot of you will not like it, I think it's worth hearing and at least understanding where they are probably at. By them, and I mean Disney, okay? Disney, over the last 10 years, basically, has attempted to build up an audience around Rey, and they have very obviously courted a lot of young female audience with a lot of their projects. Like you can just see it. And if you're being like really charitable about this, you could sort of characterize it as, hey, they wanted strictly to go after female fans and bring them into Star Wars. And they saw an opportunity there and they went for it. And this was something that Kathleen Kennedy wanted to do. If you're being charitable, that's what it was. If you're being uncharitable, it was just a terrible idea made by somebody that put their personal hope and their personal feelings about what a brand should be above their business sense and what the brand actually is. And, I watched Grace Randolph break some of the stuff down yesterday. I thought her takes were pretty good. And she essentially said, like, Kathleen Kennedy's biggest fail was essentially trying to turn Star Wars into a girl brand. And it just didn't work. Like, if you look at the numbers, it just didn't work. All it did was kind of shrink the primarily male audience that you once had engaged. And frankly, the new female audience that you went after did not really show up in big enough numbers to, like, I don't know, get a second season of Skeleton Crew or Acolyte or whatever, right? So that's sort of a discussion there. But I think the reality is this. This is what you have to really keep in mind. Even if you don't like Rey, you have to acknowledge that Rey did create some new fans. and that there are some female fans that maybe sort of liked Star Wars before or even really liked Star Wars before, and they like Rey and they like what Star Wars has become. And I know that seems crazy. Trust me, I totally disagree with that. For me as a fan, I've basically had the opposite experience where I've felt pushed out of Star Wars to the point where, like, I rage out about this shit, really emotional. I don't really cover Star Wars like that anymore. Like, I'm on the complete and opposite total end of that. However, you have to acknowledge that they spent 10 years and billions of dollars, probably at least $1 billion, maybe not, maybe like, high hundreds of millions, on building these assets and gaining these new fans. Okay? And the whole point here is that they want to protect the assets that they have spent a decade building, and they want to keep the new fans that they have gotten. Okay? I'm not saying that that's the right move, but what Jeff points out, and I think this is important to realize when contextualizing all of this, is that that is absolutely something that Disney is thinking about, that they are considering, that Kathy is considering, and it just makes sense. If you do 3 movies with this new character, you spend all this time building this character up, yeah, you basically have 2 decisions. One is consider it to be a mistake, burn it, and move on, or try to make it work. And you could see how a company that had invested into something would want to try to make it work, okay? Now, thanks for watching, and if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.